All right, let's just get right into it. One of the biggest myths, and I mean biggest myths, in real estate has to do with prospecting and that dreaded do not call list. It's a huge source of fear for so many agents, but you know what? Today, we're going to clear all that up.
Mark Twain absolutely nailed it with this one. And it is the perfect way to think about this topic because the problem isn't that agents don't know the rules. The real problem is that so many agents are so sure about things that are, well, just flat out wrong.
And this right here, this is the big one. This is the thing you know for sure that just isn't true. The idea that if a for sale by owner, an FSBO, is on that do not call list, that's it. Game over. Your hands are tied. Well, today, we're going to take that myth apart, piece by piece. So here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll tackle the myth head on. Then we'll dig into what the actual law says. I'm going to give you a practical playbook for calling FSBOs, and we'll clarify the really important differences with expired listings. And finally, we'll totally reframe how you should think about your role in all of this.
Okay, so let's just start by talking about the fear, because it's real. The threat of those massive fines, it's scary. And that fear stops so many good agents from going after leads that could literally change their career and, more importantly, change their clients' lives. But here's the thing. That fear is built on a total misunderstanding of the rules.
Now, before we go one step further, I have to say this, and it is absolutely critical. What we're talking about here is the federal perspective. Your ultimate guide, your North Star, is always your state's licensing authority and whatever your broker's policy is. You follow those rules above everything else. Got it? Good. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the law. This is where all the confusion really begins. But you know what? It's also where we're going to find all the clarity. The law was created for a very, very specific reason, and it's probably not what you think it is.
The whole thing, this entire, giant, scary issue, it all boils down to how you define one single word: solicitation. If you can understand what this word legally means, it's like finding the key that unlocks this whole puzzle.
So, the do not call law wasn't designed for you. It was designed to stop telemarketers. The people calling you during dinner trying to sell you a magazine subscription or asking for a donation to something you've never heard of. It's about a direct ask for money over the phone. That's it.
And this right here is where the rubber meets the road. Look at the difference. Calling up an FSBO and saying, hey, let me list your house. In other words, asking them to pay you for a service, yep, that crosses the line. That's solicitation. But calling on behalf of your buyer, who you have a legal duty to help, that's a totally different ballgame. That's a permitted professional service. You're just doing your job for your client. And here is the other piece of the puzzle that changes everything. A for sale by owner who puts their phone number on a sign in their yard or in an online ad is literally asking people to call them. They are inviting you to contact them about the property. That means your call, when it's about a buyer, isn't unsolicited at all. They started the conversation.
Okay, so that's the what and the why. Now let's get into the how. How do you actually make this call without crossing any lines and, actually be effective? This is your step-by-step game plan.
First things first, it all starts with your mindset. You are not calling to get a listing. Let me say that again. You are not calling to get a listing. Your only job on this call is to serve your buyer. That shift in thinking changes the entire dynamic. Then, you just need a clear opener and a smooth way to pivot the conversation to your buyer. Here it is. This is your opener. It's simple, it's professional, it's direct. You're immediately showing them that you're responding to their ad. You're not some random person calling out of the blue. You're just acting like any other potential buyer would. And you are going to hear, hey, I'm not working with agents. It's inevitable. When you do, this is your magic phrase. You're being respectful, you're validating what they just said, but you're also immediately clearing up your purpose. I'm not here for you. I'm here for my buyer. It just completely disarms them and lets you have a real conversation. Okay, let's switch gears to a slightly trickier one. Expired listings. This is where a lot of agents get tripped up because the rules are a little bit different. An expired is not an FSBO, and you have to approach it with a really specific legal detail in mind. So here's the key thing to get. Just because their house was on the MLS doesn't automatically create some prior business relationship that lets you call and ask for a new listing. It doesn't work that way. However, the relationship that did exist was for the purpose of other agents showing the property to buyers. And that specific purpose, well, that gives you a legal way in.
And this is the magic number you have to remember.
For up to 18 months after a listing expires, you are generally allowed to call that owner and ask about, you guessed it, showing the home to a buyer.
Okay, everybody, lean in. Because if you only remember one thing from this entire explainer, I want it to be this. It does not matter if you are calling an FSBO or an expired. Your purpose on the phone is never to talk about listing their property. That is the big red line you do not cross. The entire conversation has to be about your buyer's needs and the possibility of a showing, period.
You have to remember people with expired listings are often tired, frustrated, and maybe a little cynical about agents. So empathy is your best friend here. This script is gentle. It shows you know what they've been through, and it gets right to a simple, low-pressure question, can we still see it?
So, when you pull all this back and look at the big picture, it really leads to a huge shift in how you see yourself. You're not a telemarketer. You're not a pushy salesman. No, your real role in the real estate world is something so much more important.
Think about it. At the most basic level, the market has these fundamental needs. On one side, you've got buyers, and they are out there searching, sometimes for months, desperate to find the right home. And on the other side, you have sellers. This includes FSBOs and the owners of those expireds. They need to sell their house so they can move on to the next chapter of their life. And where do you fit in? You're the bridge between them. You are the professional who connects these two powerful needs. You're not a salesperson, you're a solution provider. You bring people together. You are the matchmaker.
So, I want to leave you with this question. What if you stopped thinking about these phone calls as trying to get a listing and started seeing them as a chance to provide a solution? How would that one little shift change your business? What if you picked up the phone not to sell, but to serve? That, right there, is how you build an amazing career.